y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Emma. If you're not new here, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. Today we are recapping my whole first year experience, what I learned, what advice I feel like I can give you now that I've been through it and finished it. Thank goodness. Before we get started, if you are new here, I would love for you to subscribe down below so that you don't miss the rest of my videos. Hopefully, if you just wrapped up your first year like me, you can relate to a lot of the things I'm saying. And if you are going to be a first year teacher, hopefully I can provide you with some helpful advice. Obviously, I'm not a pro. I don't have all the advice, but I do feel like I am truly a different teacher than I was in August. And I just feel like I've learned and grown so much this year. So I wanted to share some of that with you. So I've got some notes so that I stay on track, but I've got like a lot to cover here because it was a year. What a year to have a first year. I feel like I can literally handle anything now. Don't test me in that, but I do. I feel like it made me so strong and it made me grow so much, and I'm grateful for it. First, I just want to kind of recap the year because it was not a normal year, obviously. And I just want to kind of share the kind of year that I had because we had so many changes. And if you've been watching my vlogs this year, you would know how many times we changed. If you did not watch my vlogs, I have a whole playlist on my channel that I will link above for you. You can go back and watch all of the week in my lives. So much happened. So we started the year hybrid, and our hybrid was we'd have group A Monday, Tuesday. Everybody was remote on Wednesday, and then we had group B in person on Thursday and Friday. And this went on until October, like the end of October. Hated it. And then we came back full time, but our full time was just 4 days. We kept our Wednesdays remote. I think like the last week of October. So that went on the last week of October, all of November. We were 4 days a week. We went on Thanksgiving break and then we didn't come back. We were remote all of December, which also sucked. And if you were a remote teacher this year, I have to give you all the props because that month of remote was horrible. Having to do all this extra work with none of the reward. Like I had none of the joy of teaching, and I was just in such a funk in December. Came back in January in hybrid. We went back to 4 days in February, so they were there 4 days a week. Wednesday was still remote. And then I think in April, maybe even the end of March, I can't really remember, we went back 5 days a week. I think it was the end of March. And we kept that through the end of the year. So that is 4, 5, 6 different scenarios this year. And I think that was the hardest part of my year. Just the no consistency. There was no consistency. It was constantly changing. There was this constant anxiety that I could literally go home and then the next day it could be completely different. So that's something I'm excited for next year. Maybe I should tell you kind of my outline. So I have a list of things that I feel like I really learned this year, and I want to share that with you, maybe as advice, kind of just to reflect, but hopefully it can be helpful for somebody. And then I also want to share some procedures that I did this year that I totally loved and will be doing again next year, and I really feel like made my first year easier for me. Then I also got a couple of commonly asked questions that I wanted to answer. So here are some things that I learned this year. Number 1, this is not going to be a surprise to you if you watch my videos regularly, boundaries. I learned this real quick. It was affecting me so negatively to carry the weight of my job so heavily all the time. I am so grateful that I set those boundaries so quickly. I do not have my email on my phone. So if somebody emails me in the evening or on the weekend, I am not going to see it until I get to school Monday morning. I would leave like pretty quickly after the kids would leave, and that really helped me. And just understanding that it is not my job to be on all day, every day. Number 2, I had to learn really quickly to have a lot of patience. I truly did not know how little first graders are and what they come in as. And as I reflect on the beginning of the year and I know where they left, they matured so much this year. It's just the age they're at, and that's okay. And I didn't know that going into it. I did not have the patience that I needed to have to be a first grade teacher at the beginning of the year. I'm just gonna be honest with you, because they are very slow moving. They are not very independent. They don't know how to do a lot on their own yet, and you have to train them. And at the end of the year, I could sit back and they could, honestly, I think they could go their whole day and be fine because that's how I trained them. And they just grew. Also, they just grew up, like they matured. It wasn't all me. It's just the developmental stage that they're at. But I wish I would have known. The next thing I learned, and I kind of knew this already, relationships set the tone for classroom management. That is like my number one classroom management strategy. When I had those relationships, it made my behavior management so much easier, and I did not need these fancy strategies and games and rewards and all this stuff. Next year's group of kids, the things that I did with this class that worked phenomenally, it may be completely wrong for my next class. So I know that and I'm aware of that. Next thing I learned, everyone's journey is different. We all have different priorities. We all have different goals, and that is okay. Something that I struggled with a lot this year was imposter syndrome and feeling like I am not a good teacher because I am not obsessed with my job. I see so many other teachers who are successful, but who make teaching their number one. And I really felt like at the beginning I had to do that. Like I was not a good teacher if I didn't go get my master's. And if I had no desire to go get my master's, that meant I just am settling and I'm not a very good teacher, and that's not true. We all have different priorities. There is nothing wrong with making school your number one. That's just not me, and that's not where I'm at. I still kind of struggle with that a little bit, but it's okay. We're all different. We're all on different journeys. Also, this is kind of similar. It is okay to not go above and beyond. Every lesson is not going to be picture perfect or Instagram worthy, and that is okay. Your kids don't care. Simple sometimes is better. Just because it's not pretty or super elaborate does not mean there's anything wrong with it. Next one. You set the tone for your classroom. You know, there are just some days when you're not feeling your best or you're just burnt out, that your energy is not 10 out of 10. And that is okay. There's nothing wrong with having those days as long as they're, every once in a while. My kids didn't suffer, but I totally noticed a shift in the room and in the energy. When I was super tired and super, burnt out and down, they kind of reflected that mood. When I was super silly and energetic and when I overdid every single thing and was just being kind of over dramatic, they reflected that, and they were energetic and excited to learn and excited to do the things that I had prepared. Even if it was simple, if I was excited about it, so were they. They match your energy. Okay, last thing that I learned is how important procedures and routines really are in having a classroom that flows easily, and also it made my job so much easier. It built independence. I just wanted to share like 3 procedures that I did this year that I really feel like were my top 3 that I will 100% be doing next year. So the first one is junior teacher. This is instead of classroom jobs. To be completely honest with you, I had intended on doing, the cute classroom jobs that everybody does, where you have like a list and you have like maybe like popsicle sticks or like clothespins and you move friends every day or every week. I even had it like made and printed, and it was so cute. It was too much work. I did not want to keep track of who was where last week. I just figured out like before I even started school that was too much. So I nixed that and I just came up with a junior teacher, and I had one junior teacher every day. I literally just had a stack of their names that were laminated. I had a junior teacher sign on my whiteboard and a little magnetic clip, and I would change the name out every day, and then I would put it to the back of the pile and I would pull the next name the next day. They loved it. They loved being the junior teacher, and this person was like my line leader. They were my door holder. If I needed help passing things out, they passed it out. If I needed someone to erase my whiteboard, they erased my whiteboard. If I needed somebody to run an errand, they ran the errand. Everything that I could possibly need them to do, they did it. Oh, they also led our like calendar time. We did like an alphabet review every day, so they would get to lead that, and then they would get to pick somebody and call on a friend to do it. So there were just a lot of like little things throughout the day that they got to do. They were always so excited when they were the junior teacher, and they really took ownership, and it really made them independent and it made them a leader. I will 100% be doing that next year. It was so easy and they love it. The next procedure I will be doing next year is my early finishers. All year I would have kids who would take 5 minutes to complete something and 30 minutes. I am so grateful that I already had this in place. So my early finishers were either a coloring page, which these got harder as the year went on, like a color by number, color by like the sum or like the difference. So it would be like a math problem they had to solve, and then it was kind of a color by number, but it was like they had to solve a math problem. Or it was a color by sight word. It was coloring, but it was still purposeful. They could also pick a math game, which I had a couple different math games to choose from. They could pick a phonics game, like a phonics bingo, a phonics board game. They could silent read, or if they had anything in their catch-up folder, like something they were working on, a coloring page or anything, they could go get that out of their catch-up folder and work on that. Something I implemented though and added to that mid-year was I would tell them what their early finisher would be. Instead of just letting them have a free-for-all, to make it more purposeful to the time of day, I would put on the board what their early finisher was. So like if it was a math worksheet, their early finisher during math time is naturally a math game. Or if it was a phonics paper that we were working on or a writing page, when they were finished with that, their early finisher choice was that they could pick a phonics game. So it just made it more purposeful. And again, it was less, what do I do? What do I do? I just pointed, go look what your early finisher is right now. And then the last procedure that I loved was our morning routine. I just loved our morning routine. They would come in, they knew exactly what was expected of them. They had to turn in all their stuff. If they ate breakfast, they would go get breakfast. If not, they would pick a morning choice bin, play with that quietly at their seat. That was their time to talk to me. That was their time to socialize with their friends, eat their breakfast, kind of wake up a little bit. And I really noticed a difference in just giving them that time first thing in the morning to just be kids and just to socialize and kind of wake up a little bit, because I would have friends who just needed to talk. And then I would have other friends who needed some time to kind of adjust and wake up, play with their toys. Even if they didn't really play with them, sometimes they would just sit there and kind of wake up. Kind of looks like me before I drink my coffee. But by the time that the bell rang and we got started with our reading, everybody was ready to learn. And so I really loved our morning routine. The last section of this video, I'm going to answer a couple commonly asked questions about this year. So first question, what was the biggest struggle of this year? I kind of already said this, but I really think the biggest struggle for me and my kids was just the inconsistency. And so I'm so excited next year, hopefully, to have some consistency, because that was just really hard. How did your planning change? I feel like I was so blessed with having remote Wednesdays and having less lesson plans to do at the beginning of the year to kind of ease myself into it. Obviously at the end of the year, like our Wednesdays were gone. I had 5 days a week planning, and so I had to like really plan. I just kind of learned what kind of lesson planning I needed to do for me, what was the most efficient, what was the most effective. It took me a little bit to learn. And everybody is different. There's no one size fits all for lesson planning. There's no right way to do it. And so it took me a while to kind of figure out what I needed and what worked. So it changed a ton, but by the end of the year, I really feel like I started to get into my groove and understand how to lesson plan a little bit better. What was the best and worst part of this year? The best part was my class. I had the best class. And on my very last week in my teacher life, I kind of expressed that a little. I did express that quite a bit. I can't even imagine like going back in the fall. I was thinking about this last night. I can't even imagine going back without them. Like, they were incredible and the best first class I could have ever asked for. And they're a class that I will literally remember forever, because every single one of them is just so special and I just adore. So they were for sure the best part of this year. They were such a like God gift to me to get through this year. Okay, my camera just kicked me off because I talked too much. So sorry if it just shifted, and I'm almost done, I promise. I just have so much to say. Worst part of this year. Besides COVID, I feel like the worst part of this year was just trying to figure out what kind of teacher I was and where I fit. And I have a great school and a great team, and there are so many good things about this year, but just being a first year teacher is really hard. Kind of just feeling like you're trying to figure out what you're doing. Having nothing to base it on also is really hard. I don't know, I had so many moments in the middle of the year where I was so afraid that I was failing my kids, and so afraid that we would get to the end of the year and I would send them to second grade and the second grade teachers would be like, what did Emma do with her kids? Like, they are nowhere near where they should be. And now that we're at the end and I see where they've come, I know that everything we did was just fine. Like, they made it. They made so much growth. I am so proud of them. And I think that everything worked out, and next year I'll probably do things pretty similarly. I mean, I'll change a lot, but like, It's not like I completely missed anything. And the whole time I was just so anxious that I was forgetting something really important, or I was so behind where I should be and I wasn't, but I didn't know better and I didn't have anything to base it off of. That was really stressful. Was it what you imagined? I don't know. I think so, but I think it took me a while to adjust and to become the teacher I wanted to be. I mean, I loved it. It was fun. I don't know. I don't really know what I imagined now that I'm like looking back. It definitely was not like anything I've ever experienced. Like it was not student teaching or practicums or subbing even. Like it was completely different and nothing really could have prepared me for it, to be honest with you. So I guess no, it wasn't what I imagined, but it was just as sweet as I imagined, I guess. Okay, last question. How stressful was it really? Very stressful. And that's just school. Like that's without any stress from life. And obviously I had stress from life. It was a very trying year, but we did it. So that is all I have to share from my first year. Hopefully I gave you some advice or something that you can take into your first year if you're going to be a first year teacher soon. Everyone's experience is obviously going to be very different, and you may agree or disagree with some of the things I said, and that's totally fine, but this is just my experience. So if you have anything that you learned from your first year, leave it in the comments for us to read. I would love to hear what's something that you really took away from your first year of teaching. Thank you so much for watching and for being here. If you are new here, again, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!